There you go. So I'm not doing it. I've got a better intro.
So we just opened with Michael saying, I've got a better intro.
I've got a better intro.
Let's see what it is, Michael.
Guys, gals, non-binary pals, it's time to face the music. It's time to light the lights. It's time to raise the curtain on a bunch of Muppets on a show tonight. Yes, it is Wednesday night. It is Team Talk with your delightful Hub Games crew. I am Michael. Yes, it looks like the Brady Bunch. And we have a special guest again this week. The delightful, the wonderful, the handsome and noble, John Fiore. Bless you. See that. Anyway, hello, fellow Muppets, and good day, John. John is over in the US, and John, of course, is the co-designer on Prisma Arena, as well as you can see behind his head. Way
Mega
back.
City.
Mega City of Shunk. No, Untold Adventures Await, which, of course, you two collaborated on, Rory and John.
Yeah. So actually, that's probably a good point to start.
No,
John...
a good way to start is for everybody to say hello.
Okay.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
I did it.
Hi,
I'm sorry.
Rory.
Hello.
You're shaming me in front of John again. So,
the shame started when there was no actual theme music, and it just started. That's.
I thought the shame was always there.
Shots fired.
Yeah, this is how the internet works.
Hi, us.
Hi, us. So let's throw straight into it. So, Rory, you and John, of course, did collaborate first on Untold Adventures Await, the Story Cubes RPG. So, how did your paths cross?
So that's what I was going to ask you, John, because I've probably told this story a couple of times, so I'm really curious to have you tell the story from your perspective.
Sure, I'm going to tell it from the actual way it happened perspective. When you tell it, it differs every single time. My favorite being the one on the mountaintop. I like that one a lot, but none of that was true. It was.
And you turned me down.
It goes back to Story Cubes. At the time, I'd had a solo role-playing blog or solo gaming blog and had incorporated Story Cubes into some RPG stuff, which you saw, but at the same time, you also saw my posts on HeroClix. And they were the saddest posts of all because I was having trouble actually getting people to play HeroClix with me. And one of the venues where we were playing in tournaments closed down. And in my sadness and despair, I was trying to cobble together solo HeroClix rules because I'd had thousands of figures and nowhere to play them. So your love of HeroClix, your name on Story Cubes, you saw the two together and you said, hey, let me reach out to this guy. He seems pathetic. Let me see if I can help him in some way. And we started talking then. And that's when we both recognized that shared need, that there were aspects of role-playing games from our youth and then into our adulthood that were missing. And we wondered how we might approach in some way meeting that need for ourselves. Totally self-centered. No thinking about, let's make a game out of this for the world, but just like, how do we bring that experience to ourselves, whether it be solo or in group play? The conversation started then. You were in New York for one toy fair. We met up, continued the conversation, and eventually you got serious about making something that eventually became Untold. And that's how it happened. For real, no mountain.
You left out the bit about the donkey.
No donkey. No donkey. Did not happen. Much more boring.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, then I'm equally as pathetic because I was struggling to find people. I got into HeroClix, I think, a lot later than you because you've play tested HeroClix, haven't you?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Unbalancing, yeah.
Yep.
I just slipped that in, to give you some pedigree as well.
Thank you.
So yeah, I didn't have the same collection that you had, but I really enjoyed the gameplay, and having a solo variant was a great way of actually testing out the powers that came with the game. So there's a kind of mutual sadness at my end that kind of brought us together across continents.
So
Making
sweet.
it sound like this sort of
Aw.
like meeting of tragedy.
That's not far off.
Yeah, that was it.
That'll be the movie title.
That's right. John, question: do you still have bucket loads of HeroClix figures?
In that closet right over there. Oh yeah,
Turns the camera around.
tons of them. No, the shame is locked away for now. They come out when I can use them, but there's just nowhere to play them. And that was actually where the origin of Prisma Arena lies, in that here's this ton of HeroClix, and I have a nephew I could play with. I have 2 or 3 friends who've never played it I could play with. I have my wife in the other room I could play with. None of them have the time to learn all of the rules. None of them will ever be brought up to speed with all the nuances of every new iteration of, the 50th iteration of the Spider-Man character in the game. And so it won't be competitive, and therefore it won't be fun for me. It'll be fun to teach them, but then it would be a long time before there would be a competitive game. And I had that need for being able to use those and other miniatures that I had in a way where, again, purely selfish, not thinking, oh, I want the world to have this, but just being able to fulfill the need to create a straightforward system that I could teach anyone in about 10 to 15 minutes, adult, child, whomever. And then in the midst of play, because of the structures of the play, if I remove the frustrations of what it takes to learn a lot of miniature skirmish games, and replace them with elements where I, the veteran player, can't predict what will happen next, I might actually have a competitive game that I could play and enjoy with someone who has little to no experience with miniature gaming and skirmish gaming. And then my massive amounts of miniatures over there could come to life again and be ready to use.
So John, can I share, because this image sticks with me. You said kind of one night your partner offered to play any game with you, and you got really excited about the idea of playing HeroClix. What happened?
Yeah, because those words only get uttered once every 4 to 5 years. So when it happened, I was thinking, I'm going to take advantage of this. And I had just been reorganizing for the 6,000th time my collection. I said, this is the time I'm going to take these. And I realized, by the time I explain all of this, and I love HeroClix, don't get me wrong, but by the time I explain all this and try to build a team, even in the simplest form, the fatigue with just learning the basics will have set in, and my time I've got a window of like 90 minutes when that offer comes out, and that's about it. So there was no way I could have done it if I had a more straightforward, simpler set of rules, but that were still surprising and deep in some way in the situational strategy. Then I stood a chance. Otherwise, nope, not going to happen.
So what did you play?
Nothing.
Oh no!
Nothing.
And that's
nothing. Window closed. 90 minutes went by. There were some discussions. What about this? What about that? Nothing.
I'm so sorry. That's just
all this time.
The marriage remains intact for now.
Excellent.
So, John, I think at the same time we'd been kind of talking about this, and I'd been having kind of a similar experience with like Cosmaster Arena with my children, where they were really interested in the aesthetic of the game, but for their age, the complexity of the game was a bit higher than what was accessible for them. And I think when we were talking, you were talking about kind of wanting to kind of repurpose your HeroClix, and I was thinking of it. So I was kind of reaching out. I was thinking about a wider audience and saying, well, how do we create something that kind of scratches our itch as someone who has experience with skirmish games and really enjoys them and enjoys the spatial tactical aspect of that kind of gameplay. But how can you do that whilst also creating a game that like our younger self would have really enjoyed as that kind of first play experience? Because for me, when I see a lot of people talking about like recreating those games of their youth, a lot of extra stuff ends up getting layered in, and I question whether my younger self would have actually enjoyed that game. And Hero Quest is one of those perennial things that comes up. I wanted to make like a new Hero Quest, And I go, my younger self would never play that game. So I think that was the kind of starting point of that, setting that challenge of the game has to work for let's call it like the ex-HeroClix or Crossmaster player. For them to play with their friends. It also needs to be possible for that person to play with their children and have an enjoyable experience together. And for the children to be able to pick up the game and be able to play it with each other. That, for me, was like, I think, the 3 checkpoints we had as we started to work on the game.
First off, nostalgia is a lie. If you think back to your childhood, to TV shows or movies that you loved and you just adored the music, and you go back in time to the reality of it, you realize those were very different eyes that looked at that. So nostalgia is a bit of a lie, but the feelings associated with your nostalgia are not. And that's what you want to recapture when you're thinking about, oh, I want this game to feel the way it felt when. You don't want that game or that TV show or that movie from the past. You want that emotional response. So being in touch with that and avoiding doing research, avoiding actually going back in time and looking at things, starting there with your feelings. And then if you think about what made the youthful gaming experience possible, it was probably the wonder, the enthusiasm, the encouragement of the people around you, which then in the future must turn into remove the frustrations, remove the impediments to accessing whatever the gaming experience is meant to be, to recapture that wonderful, exciting, that feeling of joy and wonder that you had when you were a kid. You can have that again at any age. It just has to come with the recognition that you shouldn't try to retread previous, let's say, design ground, but rather to recognize that the games that are existing right now that maybe are not scratching that itch, that are not making that feeling come back to life, there's nothing wrong with them. It's that you need to take that critical eye personally for yourself and say, what are my needs, or what are the needs of the people around me, so that we can have that sense of joy and wonder together, and slaughter every sacred cow that comes along where you think this has to be in this game, and it does not. Nothing has to be there. What has to be there is that feeling all over again.
That was definitely, I think, a part of the work we did on Untold. It was because I remember thinking, like, unless we upset someone, we're doing something wrong, because again, that game hadn't been created that we wanted, and so if we just did the same thing, we would fail in opening role-playing games out to a wider audience as well. So it kind of felt like, actually, we need to kind of like slay some of those secret cows if we're going to open the game out to a wider audience.
And it's the same thing with Prisma Arena. How many times did we hear that you can't make a minis game, you can't make a skirmish game without dice? You always have to roll dice to see if you hit. You always have to do that. How many times did we hear that over the course of the last 2 years? A lot. And for me, it was very early on in presenting some of these ideas to folks where where's the dice? You mean I just hit? It's one of those things about modern day gaming experience where there are these what appear to be accepted norms, like there are things you have to have in a game. If you believe that you have to have X or Y or Z in a game, you will never innovate. You'll never push forward. You'll never move on to something new and exciting. That, again, if you're making it for yourself, great, wonderful. If you're making it for the world, they may be shocked at first and say, where's the dice? But then ease into and realize, wow, this is a new experience. This is something different.
This is a great opportunity, and I suppose to ask the rest of you, because I kind of have some idea of it. What is your take, prejudice, love of like what we'd consider skirmish games? And that hopefully will also help to answer Yoss's question, which is like, what other skirmish games have we played?
And gave inspiration to Prisma Arena. Erin, Do you want to jump in? Tell us about your abiding passion for skirmish games.
If you play them or not, and why or why not you play them.
So honestly, I usually don't. And the main reason why I kind of avoid them is based on theming, or just the fact that like somebody who's got that much more experience or is just that much higher level of you, if you're starting out here, like you just get wiped. At least that's always been my previous experience. And then it's like, well, that guy's gone. You're like, but I wanted to use that guy's ability. And he's like, nope, you can't. And it's like, well, that's nice. I just figured out how that works. I guess I'll use this guy. And they're like, I just killed that one too. And you're like, oh. And that's
Actually,
what you're like, I have one person, I know how to use them, and it's always the first one to go. So that's usually why I would stay away from skirmish games, just because I'm not into just being completely wrecked in one go.
But clearly that means you're just not good enough at the game, Erin.
Well, and that's what most people would say. And then I'm like, all right, fine, let's do any kind of economy game. Let's go.
Yeah.
But I'm going to just jump in and say, but that's one of the frustrations that new players have that turns them off is here's my shiny people I want to use and put them out there. And here, I can't wait to use this guy. Then that dude's taken off the table and it deflates you. That was another thing that we wanted to address with Prisma Arena is that joy, that enthusiasm. I can't wait to see him in action. And if he's gone, it deflates you. How do we avoid that frustration? Sorry, I just want to say that's key because we talked about that a lot early on.
And
that's honestly what I really appreciate about Prisma Arena is that like even when Sana or someone else kind of gets wiped, like they can come back. I can still figure out a way to use them, and sometimes being able to have them come back further back allows me to actually move them into a better position. So it's not like a completely deflating feeling.
I was going to say, Erin, I love the bit where they bounce you and then you like re-enter the arena right beside them on your next activation. I'm just like,
or you just have that moment where you're like, I'm going to spawn right here. And how many spaces? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, like when you play the 3 or 4 player game where you can spawn in any vacant starting zone, but they've forgotten that rule. So it's like, what do you can't go there, that's my starting zone. Oh no, my friend, I can go there. It's on page 17 of the rule book. And I'm going to mess you up.
I'm going to check this. 17, you say?
I don't think it's on page 17. If it is, that's a very good guess.
You shouldn't have said anything, Michael.
It's not on page 17, but
it's page 22.
It's on page 17.
I'll edit it in post.
I would have been really impressed, Michael, had that been page 17. I swear to God, I would have been so impressed.
Corina, what about you? What's your sort of skirmish game history, as it were?
So I'll preface this with the fact that dice hate me. They've always hated me. They will always hate me. I love them. I have a huge collection of dice. I have a dice tattoo I can show you. I love dice. They do not love me. And I feel like in itself, I could just leave it there and just go, but that's not my style. I like talking, so I'll carry on a bit. But that in itself should tell you everything. But very much kind of also it's what's been said already. I love thinking and positioning and kind of having a good strategy there. And then it breaks my heart when I thought everything through and dice hated me and I could not mitigate them to save my life. And that's just thrown everything out the window. That really, really pains me. So that is my experience in general and with most skirmish games. Because I was trying to come up before tonight, I was trying to come up with something that kind of breaks that. Because I love Imperial Assault skirmish. We talked about God tier before the stream, but yes, during just God tier, excellent. But dice, not a great moment. Rory, you wanted to say something?
No, I was actually just going to flag, like you before the chat, you had mentioned God tier and Imperial Assault, and they're essentially both skirmish games. So is it something that you enjoy? You enjoy the experience of it?
Yes.
Doesn't necessarily mean you win, but you still get to. There's something about, because for me, there's something about that style of game that I really like. Whether I win or lose doesn't really matter.
I do very much enjoy them. Actually, I'm pretty good at God tier. I've only played it, I think, 3 times, and I think I've either won 2 out of the 3 or 3 out of the free, something like that. So I feel like I should retire now because it's a really good percentage. But I really, really enjoyed it. And Imperial Assault as well. I really, really enjoy stuff like this. But I was trying to come up with a game, with a different sort of skirmish game. And I had a chat with Michael before we went live because I wanted to see if this would fit. But I would think kind of Neuroshima Hex would be kind of skirmishy. It's an abstract 2-player game. Technically, if you can play it 3 or 4, but you should play it 2-player. That's where it's at.
Agreed.
And there are no dice. You're drafting these tiles, these kind of units. You're putting them on the board, and then at some point you can trigger combat. And it's thinky, and it's in a way that you can control better because of that absence of dice. So that's what I wanted to kind of highlight and say. It might not be a traditional skirmish game because it's tiles, they're hexes, it's abstract. But I think that would be one that I would recommend to people if they kind of don't want to roll dice and kind of want something else a bit. I would definitely go in the Neuroshima Hex, which I'm excellent at, by the way. So if anyone wants to challenge me, I am very much looking forward to playing a Neuroshima Hex against you in the future.
I think that was my first game app purchase.
Ooh.
But I'm terrible like that.
Yeah, I think I still have it on my iPad.
Yeah.
There it is.
So
have you guys? Has everyone here played Neuroshima Hex?
No.
Okay, so I will teach you.
not right now, Corina.
No, but I will.
So welcome to the Hop Games Neuroshima Hex tutorial stream, presented by
Which will be followed by the God tier tutorials stream as well.
Which will be followed by Michael just curling up for a wee sleep over in the corner there, just next to
So, Michael, I know you love skirmish games. Like you can't get enough of them.
All right.
If you had to play one.
Okay, so I have played some in the past, but I think the problem is that I bounced off them so hard. That was the problem. So I remember ages and ages and ages ago. You all know Halo on Xbox.
Mm.
Yeah? Okay, so they did Halo clicks. Basically, they did, it was Hero clicks crossed with Halo, and you can experience the fun and excitement of the video game on your tabletop. And it was just like, okay, all right, I'm intrigued by this. I like Halo. It's a good game. I'm going to give it a shot. Set it all up, and it was just sort of like, these rules are utterly impenetrable. For somebody who'd never played the Hero Clicks or any of the click system games before, it was like walking into a brick wall. John, it was like that sort of. This game has been around for a very, very, very long time, and you are coming into it like it's like reading a mystery novel and walking in on chapter 8 and going, right, I'm good with this, I'm fine.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's a great example that you're bringing up because Halo Clicks, which was very short-lived, it was just a little blip on the radar, but it was using all the existing rules with only 1 or 2 additional rules, and it was considered fairly easy, maybe not introductory, but fairly easy compared to at the time the current comic book sets because they had a lot more bloat to them at the time, and yet you're saying that this seemed impenetrable to you. Again, I love HeroClix. I love the click system. Jordan Weissman, genius. I'll say all that right out. But again, there's that level of frustration, the fact that it will require you to do some work, to put in the time, the experience, to get as good as whoever it is you're playing with. If you open it up with somebody else who has no idea what that is, and it's fun for you and your friend or friends to learn something new and then that's one experience, which is fine. But to take that on and play with someone who had been playing a Clicks game from the beginning, or even before that, Mage Knight, then nope, you're going to have a horrible time of it. Especially if the folks are not like kind and patient with you at the same time. I want to quickly answer that question real fast by giving a shout out to the long forgotten World of Warcraft miniatures game, which did not get a lot of love, but I got to say, beautiful miniatures. If you played World of Warcraft, at the time you probably bought them just to have them on your shelf. But the gameplay was fairly traditional when it came to skirmish gaming. However, they had a pacing mechanic in that game, a timing mechanic that was gloriously elegant. If you were a real fan of the skirmish type of game, It had a lovely pacing and timing mechanic, which for big time fans of skirmish gaming, look it up, find it, get it in some shop, and just or download the rules just to see something that was really very, very well made in terms of game design, but maybe did not get the love that it deserved, because it was a very, very slick design in terms of the pacing of attacking each other, plus a smaller game board space than the usual. It worked beautifully.
So
that's 2 World of Warcraft games that were sort of good, but bounced away, because the old World of Warcraft TCG was also absolutely amazing. So yeah,
Have you seen there's another one coming?
they've got another one. Oh, there's the small World of Warcraft. Yeah. That was pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
I need to have that in my life. It just
for me,
with the well, I didn't finish, Rory. A moment, please. After Halo
I'm just
picks,
so
I was
excited.
like, I'm never going to play this genre of game ever again. Which is a small lie, I guess, because Descent, I guess, kind of falls into the skirmish game genre. I mean, if Imperial Assault falls into the genre, so does Descent. I'm going to say, because it's basically the same engine with Star Wars on.
No, but Imperial Assault has a skirmish mode, though.
Ah, okay, I got you.
So that's why it falls under that category.
I see. Well, then, the only game I've played since then is Prisma Arena, and you know how difficult it was to get me to test that initially, because it's just like, no, the entire genre is trash. Why are you bringing this to me? But then when I actually played it, like, I get it. I understand it. It's fun because it doesn't take, like, okay, it's like Dark Souls. If you mess up in Dark Souls, the game will kill you. Okay, you will die in Dark Souls. It's that simple. If you make a mistake in Prisma Arena, the other person capitalizing on that will punish you, which is that's great. You're never going to be screwed over in the game because of something that was out of your control. And that is what fixes everything for me in the world of skirmish games. Like, everything is 100% under your control. The Mocon that you the Mocon that you play with, if you're doing the drafty thing, the powers that you build up with, your starting positions, deciding even whether to sort of like hold or use the advantage.
Yeah.
Everything that you do is under your control, and if you choose to, you know, if you make a mistake and the other person sort of like says, "Haha, I'm going to do this," and turns the tables on you, then that's your own dumb fault, and that I really, really love.
Yeah, excellently said. Excellently said.
So, Rory, how about you?
Doesn't matter. Sorry, that's happened a lot in our house recently. With 6 of us sharing the house. Like, I think I've always enjoyed skirmish games, and I partly put it down to just them being toys that I play with. You know, that the physicality of something to play with, and I go, there's a part of me that you might say hasn't grown up, but enjoys the physical aspect and that kind of interaction, and having a rule set with that just adds another layer. For me, I kind of got back into it with Monster Apocalypse. I discovered a couple of booster boxes on sale, discounted, after the game had died, basically. So version 1.0, it's on being rebooted as 2.0. And I picked up like a couple of things, and like took out the paper map and the plastic buildings. And I mean, I've given this talk like so many times, but it's one of the few games where I actually feel giddy when I'm playing it. Like, when my monster comes up, and I have it. I'll come to it. I have it set up over here behind the camera for the first time in years. When you pick up your monster picks up an opponent's monster and like flings it across the table and smashes a building, and then it powers up and rampages back across the table. It oozes the theme, and all of the choices you make in the game feed into that. Now, again, I think it was a game where it was slightly misaligned, where it would have really appealed to a kind of younger audience, but it had a high level of strategy involved because there was lots of stats and the stats were printed on the kind of like HeroClix. They were printed on the units themselves, and you needed like a massive reference sheet to be able to do that. They've addressed that in 2.0, but then switched to like kind of high-priced resin models, which again seem to be this weird counterintuitive thing in terms of accessibility. But as a game, it does have dice, and that's probably the worst part of it. Is like no matter how hard you try, luck can work against you, and that can be quite frustrating. But oh my god, when it does go in your favor, it is just like the best fun to see that your opponent fly across the table.
Rory, when your monster attacks, what does he sound like?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Unless it's like the Gundam Guardian robot, then
It's the same
not
with
like that.
digitized.
Yeah. Beep, boop, boop. But like I love games like, we were talking about them, Street Masters. I also have Jordan Weissman's Gollum Arcana, which you can see just here, which I really loved what they were trying to do.
Is that the one with the pen?
Yes.
Okay. Give it an explanation, because I find it completely. I find it really intriguing, and I would like to actually give it a shot one day because it's just so out there.
So they want, I think, kind of learning from HeroClix a little bit, like in Mage Knight. They wanted a game that had the depth of those games, but to take the bookkeeping off of the players and transfer it to an app. And so it was using like microdot technology on the cards, where you could like tap a card, it would immediately show you where that figure could move. And so I did test it. Like we learned the game in about 30 minutes, and we're strategizing within 30 minutes, which would never happen with usual skirmish games. You're just like bumbling around, bumping into each other, trying to figure out when do I fire off this power or not. So it worked in that respect, but the flip side of it was that you ended up spending more time looking at the screen and not at these amazing models that came with the game. And I played with Pedro, who used to work with us, and very bluntly he said, like, why isn't this just an app? And it was kind of hard to argue, but for me it was the closest a game got to kind of combining the benefits of the kind of tech with gameplay, because you could save army lists and stuff like that, and characters could actually level up digitally within the game and give you more powers. But it's just a real shame. And then essentially they stopped supporting it, so now those figures are kind of dead. There's people that are trying to keep the game alive, but without any support, the app isn't getting updates, and so the game is too complex to write a rule book for, to make the game easy to play. So John, actually, it needs you to kind of have a look at it and strip it out.
Gollum Arcana 2.0, make it happen.
It's like pull the guts out of Gollum Arcana and like, revive it.
We got Josh in the chat, by the way, who says a lot of skirmish game I played from Games Workshop, our game store. Unfortunately, not there anymore. Played a lot of Necromunda, but Mordheim, Inquisitor, Gorka, Morka, etc. passed by as well. Now, I didn't have a huge Games Workshop childhood, but I know that at least two of you in this chat did. Hello, Rory and EJ.
Yes.
John and Corina, what about, did you have any of the Games Workshop stuff?
Nope.
Did that go into your lives at all?
Nope. It wasn't easily accessible to me. I had one friend who had a collection. I don't know where it came from. Played a bit here and there, but really nothing.
Corina?
Nope, for me neither. As I said before, I got into gaming a bit later, so I was like 23, 24, and I just started with board games, and I kind of stuck to board games. And then I would see a game with miniatures in it and say, I'm never going to go into that because I'll need to paint them. And then I started painting miniatures, and I just started buying models to paint.
It's too late, John. It's too late.
That's how it starts. Yep.
I have no problem with that, because obviously I cannot paint for toffee, so I don't even bother.
I love painting. I really, really do. I think I have like a snake here that I was painting the other day. So there we go. It's just
Nice.
I love painting, but no, I did not. However, I am looking forward to moving probably to Nottingham, so I will be very, very close to Warhammer World and then go paint there. So ask me in like 3 to 4 months, and I might tell you something.
Will they have a ghost train there?
Am I missing something?
No, no. Like when a place called Warhammer World, they have to have like a ride that's like
like a ghost train or a.
Well, you could have gone for like a roller coaster or a log flume. The kind of thing that you expect at a standard theme park, as opposed to a ghost train.
Yeah, but the nature of Warhammer would suit like a ghost train really well.
Train, yeah.
Actually, a 40k roller coaster I could get behind. They could call it like the Inquisitor or something like Necromunda Maxis or something ridiculous along those lines. So it'd be quite
It'd
cool.
have to be red because red go faster.
Yeah, and obviously the color of blood and death.
Oh yeah, no, it has to be an orc one where it rattles, and at any moment you feel like the whole thing is going to fall apart.
Exactly. Haphazardly just painted.
And they could also have like a bumper casting, but it's all like dark future.
Yeah. Well, that's my another love of mine from my teen years. But Erin, what's your kind of Warhammer skirmish experience?
Yeah, you've had you've crushed many souls before you in the world of Warhammer.
I mean, are we talking about painting, or are we just talking about playing and destroying
my
enemies, listening to the lamentation of their women? I mean, I mostly played with my brothers, so in a weird way, like because I actually went for doing goblins and orcs, I would have more of them so they couldn't kill them as quickly. That was kind of my strategy. But yeah, it's been a while since I played, and actually I was talking to my brother about it earlier, and it's like I really need to get back into it. But I remember as kids when my grandfather gave us this like World War I military maneuvers, and he's like, use this. And we're like, okay, because none of the other kids were bothering to study like historical combat maneuvers. And we're like, what's flanking? And so once we learned flanking, we were like unstoppable for at least like 3 months. Just constantly like researching this tiny weird little old book.
Yeah, I love the idea of like a bunch of preteens in sort of like a weird like Stranger Things kind of world, just reading through this sort of like the art of war.
That's actually kind of accurate in sort of a horrible way, because my grandfather's
knowing
book
your
was...
brother, that doesn't surprise me.
No, because my grandfather actually studied to be horse-drawn artillery, so it was his like academy book. He's like, here you go. So we were flipping through that. It was a lot of fun. I remember, God, actually, I'll keep going. I do have a really weird life. Yeah, I'll keep going forever, so I'm going to cut myself off there.
Unless you want to expound upon horse-drawn artillery as his
give us
job,
like a minute on that.
That would make him approximately 320 years old.
Well, I mean, obviously he passed away. No, because between World War I and World War II, he went to a military academy. He trained in horse-drawn artillery. So when World War II came up, he like walked up and he was like, I'm ready to go. And they're like, you're useless. Pretty much.
Have you heard of tanks?
Tanks. Well, honestly, they were just like, I mean, you could, but everything you know is no longer valid. What's your day job? And he's like, I make important instruments for airplanes. So like, keep doing that. We need a lot of those.
Let's pull the focus back on.
Just segue back to Prisma Arena,
because that was frankly insane. One thing I really love about Prisma Arena is the power stuff. So as you play through the game, you get to level up. As you play more games and you score more points and you get your Prism points, you can spend them on powers that you can get in the game, and then you focus them and you can use them there, or you can basically, they become part of your character, because every character in the game is going to be unique. Everybody here, of course, has played a lot of Prisma Arena. What are your favorite powers? Let's go around the table. Kick off with John. What sort of like power? If you don't pick a specific power, you could also go for like a essentially a power set. What's your kind of
combination
favorite vibe that you like to put together?
It's unusual for me to answer a question like that, because having seen every iteration of it, mechanically, to me the most fun combinations are the ones where it's high risk, high reward, where if I pull this off, I'm going to get something out of this, but I'm going to put myself in a lot of danger. There's no maybe about it. It is going to happen, but I'll be getting something out of it. So I'm always looking for any of the power-ups that will give me more movement. that will get me to cover more territory a little bit faster. I know that that's a risky strategy to go right out there. I'm going to get hurt by it, but high risk, high reward is a lot of fun to play out once you go further into game and you begin advancing and leveling up.
Okay, so you like that sort of stick and move vibe. It's like run in, bash somebody, and then run back out again. That kind of.
No.
Oh, really?
Run out, attack, and stay right there. Hope for the best.
This is why John, despite designing the game, has never won a round in his life. Corina, I see you have cards.
I do have,
what have you got?
I do have cards because I thought, I like a bit of show and tell. I thought if I can find a card that you mentioned really fast, I can pull. Although it's a bit tough because for everyone at home, so we have 3 different levels, right? So we have level 1.
Look at my level 3s here.
Level 2. Then we have level 3 there, right? So I thought, if someone says something that I can find, but like this is a deck of level 1, the chance I would have found something was really slim. So I was optimistic, and I thought, you know what, maybe, just maybe. For example, you were talking about movement, and then I found this one. It was on top, and I got excited. And I'm like, well, this could be an example, perhaps, but I was like, not fully, but close enough. So yeah.
Actually, phase is one of my singular favorites in the game. I do like just being able to just go straight through literally anything that's on the board. It's just sort of like you can't kill what you can't catch.
You like Force Blast, Michael.
I do like Force Blast, but that's because anytime I play,
it's straightforward.
I play Prisma Arena very simply. I am a tank. That's how it is. I will take anything that will give me extra health, or will let me just take as many hits as possible. And I will also, anything that makes me stand up longer and make me hit harder. That is my vibe. I am the brick wall that will punch you in the face if you come anywhere near me.
So I remember a game, and to kind of explain why this was so fun, it's important to understand within Prisma Arena, when you gain powers, you gain essentially a power set, and that's building up over time, where you'll have like 4 level 1 powers, 3 level 2, and 2 level 3. But at the beginning of each game, you can choose which of those powers you want to focus and bring into the arena equal to your Prisma level, which would be 1, 2, 3, or 4. So it means when you're playing against someone, if they use a particular strategy, in the next game, you can switch your power set that you bring in. And you'll want a different power set for when you're playing a 2-player game, when you're playing a 3- and 4-player game, and when you're playing the team game. Like there's different power combinations that prove kind of quite useful. So after a couple of games of fighting against Michael, where he would like deal essentially an extra hit when he would blast, and trying to figure out how to counter that, I think I got a prismatic armor. It was one of the ones that allows you to absorb hits, and I would just like put them onto my character sheet, and then I ran over and just like punched you and transferred all the hits back onto you.
You and your Black Panther scrub moves.
But it was like, go ahead, hit me.
So much BS, man. So much.
But I loved how, every power that seems like you look at it and go, that's overpowered. Like, how does that work?
Yeah.
And there's something else in the game that kind of works against it. I've got one which I like is Prismatic Jolt. So when performing a move action, basically you reduce your movement range by 1, and then for each square you enter adjacent to an opponent, you deal 1 hit to that opponent. But you have to play it really smart because you're still prone to grappling. Mm-hmm. So if you can come on it with a way where you kind of like dance in and out of the person, you can deal a bunch of hits and then follow up with a strike, which is a nice kind of 1-2. But like John, you were saying, it's high. Like the amount of times I've gone to do it and went, oh crap, I'm grappled, or I can't move into the space that I thought. And then it's like the opponent just goes, okay, like and hits you back. So I love that for each power that like you just think this is awesome. There's something else in there that basically tends to counter it or can be worked against it.
Yeah.
Yeah, when everything is overpowered, then nothing is overpowered, which is why the game is so beautifully balanced, may I say. There you go. Erin, what about your power suite? What's your power sweet spot?
So normally I actually...
Nobody? Really? Come on.
No. No, we're just not responding to Michael. That's okay.
Michael's excellent wordsmithery.
Okay, we're gonna
just gonna ignore it and move on.
Center.
Yeah. So for me, I actually prefer kind of going for the more passive power sets. Like as in not ones that I have to enact, but ones that are just kind of constantly going. Because for me, then it's just like a sheet of just essentially like I don't have to do anything. I'm just awesome, and once I get to you, that's going to be it.
Mm.
So anything that kind of lets me, kind of like with Michael, deal more damage or take a little bit more damage, or even just move differently, or just make myself a little faster, then that's what I prefer to go for.
I agree with that. I think that's really nice to kind of have passive powers because, for example, a card that I really, really enjoy is this one. So basically, whenever you play combo actions, you can just play any card and you ignore linking requirements. Now, to explain, I have pulled some cards here.
Normally, that's the Wolverine power.
It's amazing. I love it so much because it's just there and it kind of it sets you up for anything. Coming back, normally you would choose an action, right? So let's say I choose to move. Sorry, that was completely the wrong direction. There we go. I would choose to move. Then after I've moved, I may choose to combo. So I would have that X. So I can use, if you look at my cards, I'm really terrible with framing stuff because you're very tiny. And yes, I apologize for my terrible framing. But you'll see all these kind of X's and O's. So if I've moved, then I can use the X. And after I did the throwing strike there, I can use an O. So afterwards I could barge. There we go. And so on and so forth. And I can use an X and maximum 4 cards. But nonetheless, you're restricted by that, which normally is perfectly fine. But sometimes that restriction really kind of stops you from doing something absolutely amazingly, just amazing, fantastic, just mind-blowing. And then this card comes around and just sets everything up for you. And it's amazing. It's amazing. Just, I can't say amazing enough because that card is amazing.
Move and then just slam somebody in the face with a very
it's expensive for a reason.
Yeah.
Yes, it is excellent. It is generally excellent. It could really set you up to do a lot of damage. So yes.
I mean, what I like about the powers is that, like, we've all demoed essentially the standard game so many times, and it's still kind of really fun. But when you start playing with powers, like all that stuff you learned, you're like, oh, hang on, I have to like watch for the fact that they can move that one extra space or they can take that one extra hit. Like, you begin to appreciate these little nuanced changes in the game and what they actually mean to the gameplay. And I think that, John, was one of the great things with, how those initial powers were designed, in that by having players, by kind of the way we made decisions to kind of have that base game, it meant when you started getting powers, they really meant something. And they didn't have to be massive to stand out, because it was like these little changes became immediately evident because you'd played, by the time you get a power, you'll have played the game 3 or 4 times and you'll have begun to grasp the importance of like range, line of sight, being 2 squares away, 4 squares away, being grappled. And so suddenly when you see this power, you immediately go, yeah, that could have helped me back in that game. And so you know how it could be useful. You don't look at it and go, I don't see why that would be of any use to me. And I think that really adds to the value of the cards without having to turn it into like an over-the-top experience that can easily break the gameplay then. I just wonder what you think about that.
And something else to point out to folks out there who maybe have experience with games like this. You might be thinking right now, well, then, if you've all got your favorite ones, I guess that's the ones you play with all the time. That's the ones you pick out all the time. Not at all. One of the ways that you're able to get those powers is to sift through, I believe, 3 at a time. Mm-hmm. When you're drawing under different circumstances, but in general, you're looking at those drawn from the top of the deck, and they may not be exactly the ones that you really, really want. None of them are bad. Like Michael said before, it's like they're all overpowered. So there's no bad draw, but we hope, and this is all a Rory innovation, by the way, we hope that it's exciting to draw, not, oh, I hope I get this thing that I want, blitz, and you pull and go, oh, I don't want any of these. We hope that it's exciting. Go, oh, I can't wait to see what I get and see how I can then maybe in another game add another possible combo and build up my power suite. So it's not one of these games where you land on, out of all the cards, there's these 3 I will always use every single time. You may or may not get those as you're building up your character. I mean, by the time you've really advanced your character all the way up, you'll have a suite from which you can pull different powers under different circumstances in different games. But you'll never have this situation where whenever you play me, I will always use A and B. So there's that development over time and the incentive to not get so locked into the same powers, to welcome the chance to draw a combination you never would have thought to put together before.
And that's where I think the Mocon shift things up a little bit, because they're assigned randomly to you at the beginning of the game. They interact well with different powers as well. So you might think this is my favorite set, but then you say you get Farg or something and you're like, oh, well, hang on a second. Actually, this other power would be more useful. Or if you spot that your opponent is playing with a certain character, you might change your powers as well. So I think the key thing of the game is learning to be fluid with what you bring. Because if you keep coming to the game with the same power set, I'm just going to be like, right, I'm going to keep switching through all of my powers to try and figure out what ones can counter you. And there will be powers that can, counter what you're able to achieve.
Yeah, and that's not to say that every time a game is played, there is always going to be one person who, like, power-wise, outmatches the other. Because there's always going to be something you can do in the game that will turn the tide in your favor. And like I said earlier, it could be something as simple as holding on to the advantage and then using it at the right time. And that's what really I really do like about the game, is those small subtleties, whether it's like, a power that you chose or a decision that you made during the game. Winning or losing can hinge on those things, and that is a lovely thing for me. It's all cool. So we are going to wrap up in a little bit, but before we do, let us talk about the emotions in motion themselves, the Mocon. The game is, the game has 8 Mocon in there, which are sort of like the physical representations of emotion. You, in the 2-player game, fight with 2 of them by your side against your opponent and their 2 Mocon. Do we have any particular favorites out of the group of 8 that are in the box? And if there are future Mocon, what ones would you like to see? Let's kick off with Rory, because I know that you're working on a whole bunch of other ones. So
yes,
this might be an opportunity to spoil
something.
No spoilers.
No, not until they've been tested.
Spoilers.
I think I have a soft spot for Newhook, the Jealous.
Same as me. Same one. I could have predicted that. Yes.
Yeah.
So why? Because he's a mean little
But not evil.
Yeah, because as emotion, we're taught that jealousy is something you should not experience. There's something kind of wrong with you if you experience jealousy, because it's not good people don't experience jealousy. And the whole thing in Prisma Arena, we tried to look at each character and figure out, how is this emotion useful to you? Like, how can this emotion be useful to you? So even like Farg the Angry is that other one where he's actually like one of the best characters in the game when his ability triggers, because you get a free attack with him because of your anger. So we're trying to figure out, how can jealousy be used as turned into a positive for the hero that it's fighting alongside. And kind of came to the idea of jealousy can result, the idea of you want something that someone else has. So you admire that thing in the other person. And so it's like in the arena, you see someone perform a move and you're jealous of the fact that they performed that combo. You're like, I want to be able to perform that combo. So jealousy. So Newhook allows you to essentially take the combo card that the person just played and copy them. So you kind of copy their ability out of jealousy. But you're also, the positive is that jealousy kind of pushes you on to learn and grow as well. if you stay static with it, it's not helpful. But if you actually learn and grow from it, it's beneficial. So I love when someone runs up to me and like fires with a force blast and does extra damage, and the new Huck just kind of saunters up and like takes that card out of their discard pile and uses it right back at them. And it's like, you knew New Huck was there. Why did you do it? And so New Huck is you. It's these little things in the gameplay that I love, where if New Huck is on the board, you have to watch you have to watch out for whether your opponent is going to copy you and try and not give them that opportunity. Like Farg, you have to be careful when you take out your opponent, because he'll get like angry and lash out at you and return the favor. So I love him where he's more like a threat on the board, which I really like about it.
What I think is really cool about that is what you said, right? So jealousy tends to be a negative thing, whereas in this case, this jealousy is definitely something that pushes your progression in the game, but it's also not in the detriment of your opponent in any way. Your opponent plays the card, they discard it, and then you copy it. So no harm, no foul. It's progress. There we go.
And I will say, just in the game, that's a really important thing. Like every single moment in the game is designed with an adult and a child in mind. So if something doesn't go wrong, we don't ever have that thing where you like, because we questioned it a number of times, do we allow someone to like steal a card from another player and use it? And we're like, no, that just can't happen in this game. If something bad happens, it's because of like what Michael said, it's a misplay that you made, but there's no like, I'm taking this from you and I'm screwing up your plans, because there's a lot of perfect information within the game, and it's the combo cards that give you the surprises. And that's, I think, being at the heart of the gameplay experience. And it comes back to that really trying to think back to being a younger player and go, and would this annoy me or frustrate me or upset me? Because I was really prone to getting upset when I was a child. Like the slightest thing would set me off. So I'm very mindful of younger players and how they experience gameplay as well. So that is kind of baked into the Mocon design.
Corina, what about your favorites?
The hugger.
So on just a general level, this is me. No, temporarily blue, but like give me a month or so and it'll be pink as well. But like this is me. Like I wish I had the tiny wings.
Yeah.
So not only are they adorable, because they really, really are, but they're indeed affectionate. And one of the things I missed most during this lockdown is hugging other human beings. If you've ever seen me at the convention and we know each other, I've hugged you. I'm looking forward to hugging you again. That is the thing. That is definitely, there we go. They are very, they wanted to run away. That's just what happened.
So in terms of gameplay, Corina, what does Grava do?
So what's very, very cool, and I have it here just in case so I don't in any way do anything wrong with this. It basically, Grava helps keeping a rival grappled. Now, we talked about this a bit earlier, but basically what it means is if at any point you are orthogonally adjacent, so like north, south, east, west type adjacent, you need to stop your movement, and now you're grappling. So what Grava does is it basically, they just make sure that they keep the rival grappled, or respectively can put you in a kind of a better position. So Grava is the best when it comes to positioning.
One of the aspects that is often overlooked with Grava is Grava can be used to swing your opponent into line of fire of another character. It's like, hey, I'm going to give you a big hug and I'm just going to swing you over here so that you can be taken out on the next activation. Or they can get your own character out of danger by giving them a hug and swinging them around.
Yes.
I think, and a really cool, it's a kind of clue to one of our puzzles. Dual Strike is brilliant with Grava, because you can give a little hug and then give a little punch.
Very, very true. Very, very true. No, I just wanted to have a disclaimer there that when I meant hugging at conventions, I don't also take you and throw you around. That's not a thing. So do not be concerned.
Yeah, Corina will pick you up and put you in the line of fire of an enemy. So
yeah, a passerby.
So please be aware.
I literally have no upper body strength, so do not be concerned.
You can use momentum. It's fine. It's all good. John, what about you? You've been deep in the paint on Prisma Arena with characters and rules and stuff. Which one of the Mocon do you love and adore?
Same as Rory, New Hawk, because I love anything that gives me agile, flexible strategy, where I'm not waiting for something specific to happen. I'm just waiting for any opportunity to use to my advantage. And the opportunity to copy something that my opponent just did is really exciting to wait for, to pounce on. So New Hawk has actually been probably my favorite this entire time. One of the few that have gone through the least rewrites this entire time, because just that Rory's concept of jealousy and drawing that out as a strength, it's been working for a long time. I love New Hawk.
Cool. Erin.
It's tough because I feel like every time I play, I change my favorite. I'm like, that person's like, you're my favorite. Oh, it's next week. You're my favorite. But and it's funny because then, especially with the first few times I'd be playing, it's like, oh, well, clearly this is the best combination, and then be forced to have another one. I'm like, oh, well, clearly this is the best combination. But I'm gonna go with Farg. I think Farg in a weird way is my favorite. Just the fact that
angry potato.
Hey, leave my angry boy alone. It's either if I can have Farg and then Pian, actually, just anger and just sadness. That's usually my two favorite.
Yeah.
Anger and hurt. Yeah. Just run in with those, and then when I take too much damage, I'm just like, run, Pian, run. But the fact that essentially when it's Farg that gets taken out, that you can just run up and blast someone, especially if they are just within range. They weren't expecting you to be. It's perfect.
Well, and I like the fact that we brought back in the consequence of your hero has to hit someone. So if they can't hit a rival, they may end up hitting a teammate. Because when anger needs its outlet, it doesn't really care.
And I'm trying to remember. I can't remember if it was with you, Rory, or if it was when I was playing at a different time. But I actually had Pian next to me, and if I hit Pian one more time, I was going to take all that damage, and then I was going to go out. But luckily someone was within range. But it was very close.
Cool. What about you, Michael?
Well, Erin's just mentioned Pian, the damage sponge, and it's not like an emotional attachment to the Mocon at all. It's just the fact that you can treat it like a whipped dog and just keep on just stacking damage on it, and just all right, done. I'm just going to keep on. I will do whatever I can to just soak up as many hits as possible. But God, when you screw it up with Pian, you really screw it up, because it's just like, oh crap! Now a load of hits have just come on me, and now I'm super dead. So, what about emotions that we would like to see, and how would you do it?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
So
it's rough.
There's one which is on the bucket list to develop, John. It was one of the ones that we discussed. I won't say what the power is, but trust. Do you remember that one?
Yes, I do.
So what I love about the Mocon is that they give you opportunities to introduce abilities that you could never justify in another game. But thematically, they make total sense in Prisma Arena because they're tied to an emotion.
Yeah.
And I think trust in particular exemplifies that, because there's no way you would do it in another game. John, what do you think?
The concept behind trust is not something that follows physical simulation. It's not like a lot of other games that try to make something look like the concept of a ricochet. Here's how it would look in this game. It doesn't look like a physical simulation. It is very much the emotional experience.
Yeah.
It's a very meta thing to try and quantify these emotions into reality. But, that might be the most intelligent sentence I've said in about 4.
Wow.
But again, the choice for having Mocon, so the idea of emotions in the game was they could have been we wanted a game with sidekicks, and we wanted a squad-based game. We felt it was easier to focus team building around the hero rather than having squads. So that was kind of one of the things, but just focusing all of that customization on the hero. And we knew we wanted cute kind of sidekicks as part of the gameplay. And so the idea of they could have been anything. So by choosing emotions, it gave us like a hook on which to build the abilities, so that when people were playing with the game, they would intuitively know what that character could do in the arena, and it would help them to remember it when they were playing the game. It then like opened up the whole world of solace and hope and despair and the kind of the bigger story. But it came from that wanting something intuitive for players and something they could identify with. Because again, that idea of, I don't really want to play with hurt because I don't identify with that, or I don't want to be associated with that. The fact that you have to play with all of them to level up is that kind of interesting dynamic where you hopefully come to value each emotion. And it means we have a whole like ton that we can explore in the game as well. So it does provide a really interesting kind of design challenge, which, the amount of times you rewrite a power trying to capture it is pretty significant, as you're aware.
How many times did you rewrite Summer?
Oh man, yeah.
That was interesting from like a technical point of view. Like we had like thesaurus.com up so often. So what can we do to make this bit work with that? But yeah, Sona went through a lot of rewrites, I remember.
Well, I think as well because Sona is like the one that I think younger players in particular would naturally gravitate to. So it had to be intuitive to play and obvious. And I think whilst we had a really great tactical ability on Sona and a powerful one, it made it harder for younger players to access it. So it kind of had to go. It'll probably come back in with another character later. But for Sona, they needed something a bit more straightforward, because I would have, in my playtesting, it was like more of a go-to character for new players, and you want to make sure they use the power when they have a Mokon.
Corina, what emotion would you like to see in the game?
Again, it's a really difficult question. I also forgot you had asked the question, so now I've not prepared anything in my head in these couple of minutes that we had.
Well, that's the nice thing about emotions; they're gut feelings. So go with your gut.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give you 30 seconds if you need it, because Erin can jump in, because Erin's looking super thoughtful.
Thank you.
I don't even know how the ability would work. Is the problem. But like, I'd love to have the world's most like chill Mokon. Or I guess Serenity would be probably the better. Like how would you make it so Serenity could work? And again, I say that as in like, just this most chill Mokon. It's like, it's cool.
Maybe they just sort of like exude a healing aura or something like that. It's like, do you know what? You're chill. You just want like the Orange Cassidy of Mokons.
Yes, exactly. No, that's more laziness or apathy.
See, it's actually, that is the challenge within the game, is to make sure that the powers don't kind of blur into one another.
Yeah,
as well, and you're working within a limited space of like things you can work with. So there's that aspect of where there's a risk of you keep going back to like hits and movement, and that's the challenge in the game. It's very easy to come up with mechanical things, but coming up with thematic abilities is really tough. It's tough.
Yeah, but that's why I would think like Serenity would be a weirdly fun challenge to go for, because you need to have it so it's calmness, but it's not like lack of action or that would be cool. Work on it, Rory.
Yeah, you'd have to start from the basis of it's not really bothered by what happens.
Yeah,
like that's kind of where I would start from and go, how do we evoke that in the game? Because it couldn't be just taking hit. They don't take hits. That is kind of a bit too easy, and we never take the easy path, do we?
Right. Corina, you seem ready, primed.
As ready as I'll ever be, right? So no, because I mentioned earlier, like I thought it was really cool. Like for example, with New Hawk, you use jealousy, which is normally a negative thing, but you kind of turn it on its head. So I look for something we experience to some extent every day, right? And that's kind of frustration, which is definitely not necessarily a positive thing, but normally something always positive, or should at least, not necessarily always happens, but it should, something positive will come out of that frustration because you're frustrated with something and then you want to fix it and make it better. And I'm really curious to see kind of how that process would become something in the game. I'm sorry.
No. That's interesting because it kind of like links into because when I said the question and then sort of like Rory started talking, I immediately went to Google and put in, is annoyance an emotion? And it brought up annoyance and frustration. So we were thinking along similar vibes. But my thought for annoyance would be more of the power could be sort of like something of a buff, but there has to be a downside because like the annoyance, it's just niggling at you, just going, so it's driving you on to do something.
Yeah.
But the moment that Mocon gets knocked out, like gets bounced out of the arena, something really bad, you just like explode off it or whatever. It would be awful to have. It's almost like one of those powers that are really terrible to you don't want to use it. It's like the joke power that's in the game. It's just like you manage to control it completely. You become you feel like you've achieved greatness within the arena, that sort of thing. I have mastered annoyance, which is basically my life skill. John, what about you? What do you want to see?
Yeah, I would definitely go with drunk, blitzed, blottoed. Somehow I believe that's an emotion also, because
it can make you feel emotional, admittedly.
Yeah, and the positive side, I become more confident and stronger. So there's the positive side to it. So I would like a drunk Mohawk, unless Grava already counts as that. I'm not sure because he's hugging everybody. That could be.
Does Ian count too because he's crying?
It could be. Yeah.
And look,
he's a sad drunk. He's not included. He's not invited. But yeah, maybe Grava already. It might be redundant. Never mind. So no. All right. Take drunk off the list.
I love this. Can we have him again on these team talks? Because this is amazing.
He's go back in his cage.
Yeah, back in. Yeah, that's it.
You also mentioned mad or desperate.
Desperate
could be interesting.
Desperate
like how you'd interpret that. That could be quite an intriguing way of doing it.
So it's interesting within the game because we've tried to really keep the space, like the design space, tight. So we don't have like tokens that you put on things to mark something. Like there's many times we could have done that, and we always kind of pulled back from doing it, especially with like the kind of base game and the first 8 Mocon that we see in the game. But I think if we were to introduce that, it would open up like a whole other space, but we're really trying to work with what we have. So I think to me, desperate you have to have something observable, I think, that you can measure that would create desperation. So to me, it would be like if your so it'd be something around the character going to get KO'd that like desperate could actually like move in front to take the move towards the target to take the hit. Yeah, so they basically dive to take the hit, or they would
look everybody. He's designing in real time. Watch.
I know. This is a
brain going.
Or they would.
He gasps. He's onto something.
They would. You always know when I gasp. When they or they would have to take a desperate action. So to me, then that's diving into the kind of the combo deck or the powers or something, and that would. They could pull on a power, but they're going to take a number of hits or something equal to the power that they temporarily gain.
Yeah, so you're looking kind of like desperation makes you reckless, kind of, it gives you that kind of extra oomph, but there's some recklessness in there that will have a negative
that will have an impact.
Yeah, that's cool.
But also when you're drunk, you don't feel pain, but you are injured anyway. So it's a little trade-off.
Yeah.
Grava.
You can just take a whole bunch of extra hits, and it's just sort of like,
all
right, fine.
Yeah.
Later, you're gonna feel it.
So shyness is interesting, and so which is Carrie.
Yep.
Carrie
has posted, and I will say I'm a bit of a stickler for what are considered emotions, and I use the non-violent communication list of emotions, of feelings, because they have to be something tangible, not like a kind of an evaluation of something, but it has to be tied to a physical feeling that you have. So shyness would work in that context, and I think
we touched on shyness once.
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
and again, the risk is it would be quite close to Agla, which is moving. Like Agla warns the character and moves them away. Shyness, I think, would actually have to have like hamper you until you do something that overcomes it, and then you get a temporary bonus. So while shyness is in the arena, you are limited in your moves or something, but if you then manage to do something, it is even more effective as a result of it.
It's like you won't walk into the line of sight of people, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, no, don't want anybody look at me.
Or could it give you bonuses if you're hiding behind certain obstacles or next to obstacles?
Yeah.
That's good. I like that.
Well, but again, you have to ask, like, what is... So the thing that I always ask with emotions is, like, how is it serving us? Like, what is it actually trying to do to help us or protect us? Because when we have a feeling, it's trying to tell us something. So when we're feeling shy, it's kind of trying to protect us from something happening. That's why we're experiencing shyness. That's my interpretation of that emotion. John, you can probably correct me on this, but so I'd be thinking shyness is a form of trying to protect you, but it can also hamper you. So that would be the thing, is that it would give you some buff in some way, but it'll also prevent you from doing something as a result of that shyness. Because an emotion can serve you and not serve you at the same time.
Yeah, and shyness is coming out of the interpretation or misinterpretation of threats around you. They may or may not really be threats. So approaching the conceptual view of shyness and then moving into the game space, you need that starting place where you look at the good and the bad at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. And with that, let us wrap this evening up. Thank you very much.
I hope there's a closing theme.
No, there'll be no singing. So thank you very much to everyone who joined us on the stream, and thank you very much to those of you who are watching it post-stream, of course. John, thank you for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure. As always, we miss you greatly.
Miss you.
And hopefully we'll get to see you at some point between now and the heat death of the universe, if we ever get to travel again.
Hopefully at the next con in the US that we attend.
What, 2022 at this point?
Yep.
Would you host a con in your apartment, John? Maybe we can
No, I will not.
John Con.
John Con.
John Con.
Well, you just write
happening
con, but with like a J and a
You
J.
would not be able to park any food trucks on my fire escape. Nobody would eat them.
We'll just take it to the street and play.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Socially distanced, it'll be all right. Not a problem.
No invitation.
No.
I think we should just start John Con.
Yeah.
It's like, what was that the big island event? That was a big complete scam.
Oh, Firefest?
Firefest, yeah.
So
yes.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, you're emulating Firefest for John Con.
No.
Yeah.
No.
We're going to get sued.
Don't start that. Don't.
Actually, if you get the chance, watch the documentary about Firefest that's on Netflix. It's wild, y'all. It's a thing. How did they even think they were going to get over half of that? But yeah, with that aside, we hope you're all good. We hope you're all safe. Do check out the Kickstarter over on, surprisingly enough, Kickstarter.com. Search for Prisma Arena. Corina, Rory, Erin, John, thank you all very much indeed. I am Michael, and we'll see you next Wednesday for another team talk with us, the lovely Hub Game staff. See you later. Be good.
Bye.
Bye.
Fun. Bye.